UFC 2024 has just wrapped up. Well, pay-per-view wise, at least title fight wise. And today I just thought I'd just rank every pay-per-view of the year. So without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. Starting off with what I believe to be the worst pay-per-view card of the year, UFC 302 Makhachev Poirier. Outside of this main event right here, this fight card is absolutely terrible. Nico Price versus Alex Morono is on the main card. There were no knockouts. There were 3 submissions, and there was one knockdown in the whole card, and it came from Aline Perez over Jocelyn Edwards. And outside of that, it was just pretty boring decisions all around. I mean, Gelton Almeida got a sub, but this fight card very underwhelming. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. But not potential fight of the year, but it was a really good fight between Makhachev Poirier. And moving on, we have UFC 297. Strickland, common theme on these cards, although at least on this one, he contributes to the good of it. He makes this fight card not the worst of the year, but it's still a pretty bad card. Strickland Duplessis was a pretty good fight back and forth. I thought it could have gone to Sean, but it is what it is. God, Pennington versus Maya Buena Silva. That's a terrible co-main event, and it was a terrible co-main event. Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. Neil Magny upset Mike Malott by knockout, TKO in round 3 after getting dominated for 13 and a half minutes. Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault was And outside of that, I mean, Evloev Arnold Allen was a pretty decent fight, but other than that, like, these prelims really hold this card back heavily. Like, they are some terrible prelims. Even the ones where there's finishes, it just wasn't that great. Jasmine Judavicius and Jillian Robertson got performance bonuses, which is it's all you really need to know about this fight card. Very bad fight card, and that's why it gets the 13th ranked spot. 302 got 14, this got 13. Moving on to the 12th best pay-per-view of the 12th ranked pay-per-view of the year. UFC 309, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. This was pretty bad. John Jones versus Stipe Miocic was a very bad card. Outside of the co-main event, this fight card sucked. John Jones versus Miocic, I would say underwhelming, but it's kind of just what I expected. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler was pretty, it was a good fight, but it was underwhelming based on what we thought would happen. We thought this would be a firefight, but a lot of grappling exchanges, which I don't mind, but these weren't exciting grappling exchanges. Chandler in round 5 kind of had Oliveira in trouble, but then proceeded to land a billion illegal blows to the back of the head. And Bo Nickel, not a masterclass over Paul Craig as he claims. It was just a competitive fight that he won. And outside of that, Ruffy didn't get his finish to keep the streak alive. But Lontop came in 10 pounds heavier. These fights, this was a good fight, Onamo, Roberto Romero, but outside of that, not very competitive fights. I mean, some cool knockouts from Brahim Maj and Oban Elliott on the early prelims, but outside of that, not many cool finishes, not many, moments to remember, really. So, moving on to our 11th ranked pay-per-view of the year, we got Ersteg versus Pantoja. Underrated fight card, but again, there wasn't the star power on this card at all. Like, almost none of it. There were some very high-level fights and some good fights, such as Elvis Bredner versus Meidelbeck Oralby. Very good fight. Jack Schwarzer Anderson Brito was good for as long as it lasted. We got to see Paul Craig get brutalized, which means Brown will never be champion. If Paul Craig beats you, that's how you know you'll be champion. He only beats the champions before they're known. And Michael Pereira versus Ior Pateria, domination from Pereira. Pajeda, how you say it. Anthony Smith got his submission over Vitor Petrino because Petrino just stuck his head right in that guillotine. Jose Aldo came back, and Pantoja Erceg was a great back and forth fight as the main event, and it was actually a very entertaining fight that I thought could have gone Erceg's way, but just the lack of star power is what really holds this card back, which is why we have it at 11. Moving on to the top 10. Coming in at number 10, we got Pereira Ranch for UFC 307. Fucking, I hate seeing Raquel Pennington's face, dude, on a pay-per-view co-main event. It's just hard to look at. But, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree. That sounded so mean, bro. Oh my god. That's actually terrible. But Alex Pereira, Khalil Roundtree, that was what really saved this card from not being lower. I honestly could move it lower, like maybe below a 301, but the main event was just so good. And we got to see Joaquin Buckley knock out Stephen Thompson, which is, that's always fun. I not to see Thompson, not to see Wonderboy knocked out, but a Joaquin Buckley fight's always a fun fight. Ryan Spans, brutal round one guillotine versus Open St. Preux after rocking him. Carlos Barza retired. Cesar Almeida loved poking Ihor Potier's eyes. I don't think I forgot, brother. Stephen Thompson and Joaquin Buckley already went over that. Roman Dolidze, Kevin Holland was ended early because of a Holland injury. I felt like this fight could have been decent if we didn't see Holland get injured, but we did. And that kind of hurt the card a little bit, but this fight really hurt the card. If you guys saw my recap video of 307, this was the worst. My God, one of the worst things I've ever seen. Batista versus Jose Aldo. The fact that Mario Batista is able to win a fight doing that doesn't hold out great hope. Ew, what an awful voice crack. And another one, Jesus, back to back. Doesn't hold out great hope for the future if Mario Batista is going to keep doing that. And yeah, I thought he lost to Damon Blackshear, by the way. But anyway, moving on to number 9, we have Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad 2, UFC 304 in London. And yeah, this had some moments on it that are memorable, like the Tom Aspinall knockout, Paddy Pimblett putting Bobby Green to sleep, Gregory Rodriguez brutalizing Christian Leroy Duncan, even though he didn't get the finish, Arnold Allen schooling Giga Chikadze. What else happened? Molly McCann getting absolutely brutalized by Bruno Brazil over the course of 15 minutes. Muhammad Mokaev and El Cab would have been a memorable moment had this been an exciting fight, but they talk so much shit before the fight just to faint at range for 15 minutes. And when they were doing things, Muhammad Mokaev was just cheating. Yeah, that was a terrible fight. Oban Elliott versus Preston Parsons was Modestus Pakaukis' submission over Martian Praknia was cool. McParkin's knockout, the birth of McPorkin. But yeah, decent fight card. It could have been better. But I think the main card is what really saved this fight card because the Allen fight was good. The Bobby Green Paddy Pimblett fight was good. Aspinall Blades for as long as it lasted. Just an exciting knockout. To the top level heavyweights that are in shape, it's always exciting. And Leon Bilal, not going to call this fight exciting, but to see Bilal win as a 205 underdog in the way he did, impressive. Moving on to, what is this number? The 8th ranked pay-per-view of the year I got. UFC 303 Pereira Prochazka 2. Now, this is one I've really debated about moving lower, but it's just the main event finish. Alex Pereira, the way he finished Yuri Prochazka, that's what does it for me. Keeping it up here at number 8. And also, it was just the fact that this card was so thrown together last minute, and they still were able to go out there and put on some decent performances, like Dan Ige, Diego Lopez was still a pretty decent fight, despite Dan Ige stepping in on 3 hours' notice, like maybe not even 3 hours, but it's so close to that. And Diego Lopez having to weigh in at 145, then 155, then 165, like it's just overall impressive. Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. Anthony Smith, you did Roman Dolidze. I mean, no, vice versa. Roman Dolidze, UD'd Anthony Smith in what was kind of not a great fight. Macy Chasson split Myra Brandon Silva's head open, and that ended that fight. Ian Gary versus MVP. Kind of, look, low key, it was kind of underwhelming because it was supposed to be this great striking battle, but we saw Ian Gary initiate some grappling in there. But it was still just a very high level fight. Like I didn't mind the grappling at all, honestly. I thought it was still a pretty good fight. Other than that, on the prelims, Joe Piper's knockout over Marc-Andre Barrios. I believe he put him out cold flat, like stiff as a board. Gene Silva's KO over Charles Jourdain. Talbot KO over Giannis Gamorre, 19 seconds. Not the early prelims, but these prelims right here are kind of what carry this card just above the other fight cards below it. And yeah, I mean, we saw Michelle Waterson Gomez retire. Arlovsky Bidet was an actually god awful fight. Ray Tesori, fucking however you say its stupid fucking name, should have gotten a finish. And Vinicius Oliveira cashed as a plus 205 dog in a impressive performance. But yeah, that's all I got for UFC 303. Moving on to the top half, so the top seven. This will be number 7 ranked, top 50% of cards of the year in my opinion. Volkanovski Topuria 2, UFC 298 coming in at number 97. Not no, 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 number 7, not 97. But Volkanovski Topuria was a pretty good fight in round 1. It was competitive, but I believe Volk won it before getting KO'd by Topuria in round 2, which is crazy, dude. This crazy run that Ilya's on to knock out Volkanovski like that, impressive. Whitaker, Whitaker Costa. I believe Whitaker was winning round 1 until he wasn't when he got spinning wheel kicked, almost knocked out by Costa. Um, sorry for the yawn, guys. But Robert Whitaker's chin almost went as Paulo Costa landed a spinning wheel kick, but then Whitaker 1, 2, and 3 in a good fight. Jeff Neal, Ian Gary, actually a very disappointing and boring fight. But Ian Gary got it done. Marab, Henry Cejudo was a surprisingly good fight for two grapplers. I mean, they're two grapplers. It should have expected it to be decent, but the fact that their two wrestling styles kind of matched to make this good fight, like good competitive fight with some scrambles. We had Marab picking up Henry Cejudo. Anthony Hernandez Kopylov, the birth of Fluffy and his title run. Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Lemos was actually a pretty good fight too for a WMMA fight. But other than that, we had Zhang Ming Yang on the prelims with his knockout, Danny Barlow with his knockout. Oban Elliott looked not impressive against Val Woodburn at all, but still. Rinya Nakamura should have gotten a finish over Carlos Vera. And we saw Junior Taffa step in on a day's notice, just like not even like the day of notice, to fight Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. And what made this cool is that he stepped in for his brother Justin Taffa. So yeah, overall pretty decent card. Maybe not like the star power after you get outside of the main and co-main, but it was still a pretty good fight card. Moving on to the 6th ranked pay-per-view of the year, UFC 306, Marab versus O'Malley in the Sphere. And the Sphere atmosphere kind of boosts this card a little bit, but it was just the prelims. The undercard, the co-main and main event were terrible, but outside of that, Ortega Lopez, great fight. Domination by Diego, but it was like Ortega was kind of competitive. Ribovich with Enzo Huber, potential fight of the year. Ribovich's heart in round 3, after being 1-1 going into round 3, in my opinion. Ribovich comes out, gets knocked down, and then stuns Zell Huber with, I forget what he hit him with, but just look at the strike numbers, 92 to 43. He kept on the gas, kept pressuring Zell Huber, never let it off, kept landing after he was hurt, and ended up getting the win. Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osborne. Ode Osborne almost upset Ronaldo Rodriguez after beefing with him at the press conference. Like, this random beef just started out of nowhere. I don't know what happened. But Ode Osborne nearly got the upset. Irene Aldana and Norma Dumont. One of the worst cuts I've ever seen in my entire life opened up on Irene Aldana's forehead. And her whole forehead was like moving on either side. It was disgusting. Manuel Torres looked fucking terrible in this fight, but it was still a good fight. Ignacio Bahamondes counters Manuel Torres and knocks him out. Caitlin Souza upsets Yasmin Yaragueli, however you say that fight. Yaregui. Yasmin Yaregui. That's how it is. Dude, I've had so much trouble trying to say that name. Yasmin Yaregui. And the plus 350 underdog cashed. Joshua Van looked good against Edgar Chairez. And Raul Rosas looked kind of underwhelming against Ari Lang. But, he still got the win. Overall, the prospects on this fight card, they looked good. The undercard looked good. There were some finishes and just some great fights overall. Potential fight of the year candidate on the Zahibir Esteban Ribovich fight. But yeah, the main event and co-main held this back so much. It's crazy. But outside of that, we're going to move on to our top 5. So coming in at number 5, we have UFC 310 Pantoja versus Asakura. Now, sometimes recency bias, because it's fresh in my mind, I can kind of remember more of what happened. And if I remember more, I can remember more good moments. But I still feel like this is the right place for this fight card. Pantoja versus Asakura was a pretty good fight up until it ended. I mean, Pantoja was dominating him in round 1 and 2 up until the finish, but it was still a pretty good fight. Shavkat versus Ian Gary, underwhelming because Shavkat was clinching against the fence the entire time, but it was still an fight. Siragan Volkov was a good fight, but Volkov got robbed so badly. I had that 29-28 Volkov. And here's what I'll say. You could argue you got a stronger case for a 30-27 Volkov than you can a 29-28 Siragan. That's what I'll say. Bryce Mitchell slammed Kron Gracie into the shadow realm because he tried to pull guard for the umpteenth time in his career, and Bryce Mitchell had enough of that. Nate Landwehr versus Doohoo Choi. Doohoo Choi just dominated, and like, it was so bad to watch Nate Landwehr try to fight Doohoo Choi because Doohoo Choi, he just has it, man. I don't know what it is, but he has it. Dominic Reyes v. Anthony Smith, one of the saddest fights I've ever seen. Just take a look at the strike numbers. That's all you're gonna have to do. The round 2 strike numbers. Take a look here. Yeah, 73-0 for insignificant strikes and 119-0 in total strikes. Sad fight. Vicente Luque, the Darce Knight return when he knocked down Thembagram while hopped on a Darce choke. Mobzar vs. Aljo was a good fight. It was exciting scrambles and everything. But yeah, outside of that, not many moments. I mean, the first 2 fights, Nizuchukwu and Chase Hooper had very dominant performances, getting first round finishes in the respective fields. Kennedy on the feet, Chase Hooper on the ground. And yeah, pretty good fight card overall. Some prospects getting some wins, which is always good. It's good for everybody. Good for the UFC. Good for the fans to get fresh matchups. And yeah, the only thing that sucked is that the Shavkat Ian Gary fight was a little boring. But outside of that, this fight card was very high quality and very pleased with it. Moving on to the 4th ranked fight card of the year, UFC 305 Duplessis Adesanya. This fight card had some very good Australian prospects and just prospects in general get some wins. Not Jesus Aguilar. He is, in fact, not Australian. But he got a submission in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And, yeah, we have, the main cards that carried this fight. The Prates knockout, Jairzinho's masterclass over Tai, Dan Hooker's upset over Gamrot, Kai Kara France fraud checking Steve Ursag with, what was it? Oh, it was an overhand, I think. And then Duplessis Adesanya, Duplessis submitting Adesanya and submitting himself as the welterweight champion with his first title defense. But yeah, I like seeing Junior Tafa complain like a little bitch to Walter Walker after he lost. And yeah, there was just a good mix of some decisions, some split decisions, some UDs, some knockouts, some subs. There was just a little bit of everything, and that's what makes for a good card when there's diverse results. Moving on to my 3rd ranked fight card of the year, I got Ilya Taporia versus Max Holloway at UFC 308 Riyadh season. I think no, it was Riyadh Noche. I don't remember. It was in Abu Dhabi. Ilya Taporia, Max Holloway was a great fight up until the knockout. Whitaker got absolutely dominated and brutalized by Hamzat Chimaev. Got his teeth broken by a neck crank, which is unheard of. Magomed Ankalaev versus Rakic is a pretty boring fight, if I'm being honest. High level, but boring. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige was good. It was just a good back and forth scrap on the feet. Sharon Magomedov had one of the knockout candidates of the year with his double spinning back fist to knock out Armin Petrosian. Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Sequeira. Just an absolute blitz by Ibo Aslan to start the fight. Jeff Neal watched RDA's knee explode. Rombetsky versus Heidelberg Orabai, potential fight of the year. This would be my fight of the year because this was just crazy. Dude, just trading back and forth. It was brutal to watch Orobai's eye, develop the way it did. Abus Magomedov got a sub, and outside of that, the robbery, by the way. Renat robbed Carlos Leal. To give Renat Fakhnadurov a 30-27 in that fight is brutal. But yeah, still pretty good. It was a pretty good fight card overall, and that's why I got it at number 3. Moving on to number 2, the second best pay-per-view of the year, UFC 299, O'Malley Vera 2. Just a fight card full of bangers and some good names, man. Like the debut of Robelis to Spain when we thought he was gonna be something. That was exciting. Michel Pereira's like round 1 standing rear naked choke, amazing. Um, oops, what happened here? Oh, hold on. I can't see the screen. I don't know if you guys can, but we're back. All right. Ion Cutabella versus Felipe Lins. I want to say let me, bro. I act like I was fucking live streaming by saying let me know if you guys can see it, as if I'm not recording a video. Felipe Lin's underdog win. Pedro Munoz got styled on by Kyler Phillips. Mateus Gamrot, scary fight against RDA because he almost got finished by RDA. I think he cracked him in round 1. But anyway, Macy Barber, yeah, I don't care. Curtis Blades, I'm so happy to watch him knock out Jailton Almeida, the fucking crotch sniffer that Almeida is. Curtis Blades is able to put him out with like hammer fist while he was hugging onto his Curtis Blades ankle. Peter Yan got back in the win column, dude. I was so happy to see that. JDM comeback knockout over Gilbert Burns. MVP gets it done in his debut against Kevin Holland. Dustin Poirier survives the prospect versus veteran fight. And Sean O'Malley masterclass on Cheeto Vera, like I said earlier, when comparing it to what Bo Nickel claimed to be a masterclass. This is what a real masterclass is. But yeah. So moving on to the best pay-per-view card of the year, in my opinion. I think everybody can agree that this was the best fight card of the year by far. We got UFC 300 Pereira versus Hill. This fight card unmatched. When your opening prelim is Davison Figueredo, Cody Garbrandt, you know it's gonna be a good fight. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, pretty decent fight. Jessica Andrade versus Marion Rodriguez, I actually don't give a shit. Jalen Turner, Renato Moicano, great comeback from Moicano. I mean, he was winning round 1 until he got knocked down. He then comes out in round 2, takes down Jalen Turner, and TKOs him on the ground. Diego Lopez, it felt racist watching him fight Sadiq Youssef, I can't lie. Kayla Harrison enters the rankings by beating Holly Holm in her UFC debut. Aljo's featherweight debut, he just not styled on Calcater, but he beat him pretty convincingly. Yuri versus Rakic. Yuri losing round 1, lost round 1, then is in the middle of losing round 2 before he comes back and just knocks out Alexander Rakic. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. The fact this was on the main card, absolutely disgusting. Should have even been on the card in general. But if it was, it should have been the earliest prelim possible. Charles Oliveira versus Arman Sarukian it was a pretty good fight. Oliveira could have potentially gotten the win if he just postured up and started landing ground and pound instead of just sitting in a Darce choke that was never going to happen. Gaethje Holloway, not fight of the year by any means, but it was just knockout of the year. People say this was fight of the night, but they're only thinking of the knockout. You have to think of the whole fight in which Holloway was just dominating Justin Gaethje on the feet. Zhang Weili, Yan Xiaonan. The only memorable thing I could think of when Zhang Weili almost put herself in an armbar. And Alex Pereira, well, she was armbarring herself. I mean, Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka. You know, the moment when Alex Pereira pushes Herb Dean away, doesn't even get a break after getting hit in the cup, and just knocks out Jamal Hill. So yeah, that's my review of the entire UFC year. So we have UFC 300 in the 1 spot, 299 in the 2, 308 in the 3, 305 in the 4, 310 in the 5, 306 in the 6, 298 in the 7, 303 in the 8, 304 in the 9, 307 in the 10, 301 in the 11, 309 in the 12, 297 in the 13, and 302 in the 14. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll during this like 3 week to 4 week break, I'll just be doing a bunch more tier lists and rankings and videos like that. and maybe some 2025 predictions I have. But as far as it goes from me, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.